Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the next lesson in the Su-25T Cadet series. This time we're going to take a look at countermeasures. The Su-25T has ECM and DSCM, directed infrared countermeasures. And of course CHEF and flares. What is flares? Flares are those, let's take a look. It is those flares, that distract and attract infrared guided missiles. They are pretty good, but they are not a golden egg for avoiding infrared guided missiles. Therefore, it is countermeasures in conjunction with maneuvers. When you mix those two, there is a good chance of avoiding missiles, radar guided and IR guided. CHEF is for distracting radar guided missiles. What is CHEF? CHEF is, if you take a paintbrush, those big white paintbrushes, the hairs on that, CHEF is much like if each hair is a strip of reflective materials. It can be aluminum foil, it can be any material that is highly reflective. It creates a cloud of reflective material between the missile and you, so the missile sees that reflective cloud instead of you. One way you can translate that into real life is that let's say that there is a person standing in the house with the open windows. You light a flashlight, that is your radar beam, toward that person. You can clearly see that person. But if that person closes that window, i.e. deploy CHEF, and then you point at them with the light, the glass will reflect the light, so it can be much harder to see the person behind the reflection. It is kind of like that. Some radars are able to burn through that reflection and see through it and see the objects behind it, and some missile ignores a sudden highly reflective object and just fly through it and then search for a new target behind it. It is very different depending on the weapon. And then we have ECM, that is electronic countermeasures. That is a jammer. Let's say you turn on your radio and there's a lot of static. Back in the old days when we have analog radios and not digital, static was a problem. That static can be considered jamming, if you like. There's so much noise that you cannot hear the original signal. That is electronic countermeasures. Electronic countermeasures does no good against infrared or optical seeker system. It is only good against radar and electronic systems. And then on the Su-25T, we have on the rear that little dome there. That little dome, tiki look-alike thing. That is a directed infrared countermeasures. That is a very strong infrared emitting lamp or bulb that constantly blind any approaching missiles. So it is a very nice system that can be turned on and off with a switch. It does not consume flares because it is practically a flare by itself, but one limitation is that it only works in the rear hemisphere. It does not work on the side, but only in the rear hemisphere. That is why it is called a directed infrared countermeasure. It is directed in the rear hemisphere. And why the rear hemisphere? Because that is where you have your exhaust and your engines. So it makes sense to place it there. The buttons you need to turn those things on, those countermeasures on, is button for IR jamming. That is the directed infrared countermeasures. IR bulb. Then you have a button for countermeasures chaff dispense. That means that every time you click that button, a portion of chaff is being deployed. How much chaff do we need to distract a missile? Well, it depends on so many things that no one can tell you. But the more, the better, within reason. And then you have ECM, electronic countermeasure. That is also that is just like the directed infrared countermeasures. When you press it, it turns on and stays on until you turn it off. Then you have countermeasures continuously dispense. That means when you press that button, each second one flare and one chaff will be deployed until you press that button or it runs out. A scenario for that use is if you're coming in for a attack, you're pretty straight and level, you're focused on your target, you can press that button to be even safer to be able to get out. It is a very good thing to use that when you're pulling out of an attack, because if you have dived onto an attack and want to climb out, you're most likely on full throttle. Therefore, it is very good to press that button when you start your climb out, and then stop it when you believe that you are 3 or 4 kilometers away from the nearest infrared guided missile. And we have a button for countermeasures flares dispense. That means that each time you press that button, 2 flares are being deployed, 1 to each side. So the faster you can press that button together with that button, the faster they deploy. So that is pretty much it. Just note that if you press the DSM, you can see on your HUD it shows you that it is turned on. And with the ECM, you need to have ECM pods installed. Right now I do not have the ECM pods installed, but you can do that during a rearm and repair. When you mount those pods, ECM will light up just above DSM. Please note that when you press that, it starts blinking. It needs to warm up, so there is a few seconds delay. Both systems, ECM and DSM, you can use constantly, but it is mostly used when you enter the combat zone. Turn those 2 on and let them stay on until you exit the combat area. So, and for the chaff and flares, that is how you use those. As soon as you see any missile coming towards you, that is infrared guided missiles, you will need to deploy flares to be effective against those missiles. If you just press 1 slowly, it may not be enough. So sometimes go do. Let's see if we can entice. The that is the radar from the shield cap. they are locked. Pressing F to break that lock, or at least confuse the radar. They are still locked, but they are way off. Now I don't have to use them anymore because I'm outside its effective range. So that is countermeasure in the Su-25T.